It was a cold Friday night in mid-October. I had just finished a long, frustrating shift at the cafe I worked at downtown. The espresso machine broke halfway through the evening. Two customers threw tantrums about their drinks being too foamy, and my manager had the audacity to ask me to sweep the sidewalk in the rain before clocking out. All I wanted to do was get home, throw on some sweats, and binge-watch something stupid on Netflix until I passed out. I wasn't in the mood to deal with public transportation, and I sure as hell wasn't walking home that late. It was just past 11:30 p.m., so I opened the Uber app and requested a ride. A black Toyota Camry popped up, license plate 8XX290, driver named Mark. He was about 5 minutes away. I stood just outside the cafe entrance, arms crossed to keep warm. 5 minutes turned into 10, then 15. I was about to cancel and just call another ride when the Camry finally rolled up. The plate matched. The driver rolled down the window and leaned over. "You Sarah?" he asked. His voice was low and kind of raspy. "Yeah," I said. He nodded toward the back seat. "Hop in." I hesitated for a second, just long enough to clock his face and match it to the app photo. It was him. Short cropped hair, stubbly beard, dark hoodie. Something felt off. Maybe it was the way he didn't greet me with a smile like most drivers do. But I brushed it off, chalking it up to me being paranoid after a stressful shift. I got in. The moment the door shut behind me, the locks clicked down automatically. The car smelled faintly of pine air freshener, but underneath it was something sharper, like rubber or stale smoke. Mark didn't say anything. He just put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb. "Busy night?" I asked, trying to make small talk. He didn't respond. Okay, rude, but whatever. I stared out the window as we passed the familiar shops and bars of downtown. According to the app, the trip should have taken about 15 minutes. The route was simple: Main Street to Elm, then a straight shot to my apartment complex. But after about 5 minutes, I noticed we weren't turning onto Elm. Instead, we stayed on Main, then took a hard left down an unlit residential street I didn't recognize. I tapped the screen on my phone and brought the map back up. The little blue line showing the route had veered wildly off course. We were nowhere near the planned route. In fact, we were getting further away from my destination with each turn. I think you missed the turn," I said. Mark didn't look at me. "This way's faster," he muttered. I looked at the map again. "Yeah, I don't think it is." He didn't reply. The tension in the car thickened. Every instinct in my body was suddenly screaming at me that something was wrong. I quickly texted my roommate and told her that something felt off, and that the Uber driver wasn't taking the right route. I also shared my location. Then I shared my live trip info through the Uber app and turned my phone screen brightness down so it wouldn't draw attention. As if he sensed something, Mark suddenly glanced at my phone in the rearview mirror. "No need to get anyone else involved," he said, almost too casually. "You're safe. Relax." My heart dropped into my stomach. He knew. He knew I was onto him. And now he was trying to calm me down with the exact opposite of calming words. I pressed the call button on my roommate's name and put her on speaker. She picked up almost immediately. "Hey, you good?" she asked. "Yeah, almost home," I said, making sure my voice was clear. "I'm in the Uber with Mark. Black Camry, plate 8XX290, just past Wilson Street." There was silence from Mark. For the first time, I saw his knuckles tighten on the steering wheel. "Cool," my roommate said slowly. "You want me to wait outside?" "Yeah," I replied. "Please, be outside." Mark didn't say a word, but I saw it on his face. That name drop, the plate, his name, changed something. After a long silence, he suddenly made a U-turn in the middle of the street and started heading back toward downtown. I stayed on the line with my roommate the whole time, describing landmarks we passed. 10 minutes later, we pulled up in front of my apartment. The second the car stopped, I threw the door open and jumped out. My roommate was standing at the top of the steps. I ran straight up to her. When I looked back, Mark was already driving off. No words, no apology, just gone. I reported him through the app right away and also filed a police report later that night. Uber contacted me the next morning, saying the driver's account was under review and had been suspended temporarily. But when I looked at the trip receipt in the app, I saw something that chilled me. The name on the profile had changed. It no longer said Mark. It said John L. Same photo, same car, same plate, different name. I never heard back about the investigation. Uber wouldn't disclose any details due to privacy policies, and the police said they couldn't do much since technically nothing happened. But something did happen. Something was going to happen. I don't know if the guy was using a fake identity or if he hacked someone else's account. I don't know what he had planned for me. But I think the only reason I'm still here to write this is because I called my roommate and he knew someone else was watching. Now, I never get into an Uber without checking everything: the license, the name, the face, even the voice. And I always share my location, because sometimes the only thing between a safe ride home and a headline is a single detail. I used to drive for Uber on the weekends when I was in college. It was decent money, especially on Friday and Saturday nights when people were out partying and didn't want to drive. I always kept water bottles and gum in the back seat, stayed polite, and minded my business. This happened about 2 years ago. I had just started my shift on a Saturday night around 8 p.m. Things were steady, a few short trips to and from bars, one guy who tried to get in the front seat and immediately passed out, he was harmless, and a bachelorette party that nearly exploded my eardrums. By 2:30 a.m., things had started to wind down. I figured I'd take one more ride and then head home. That's when I got a ping. Pickup location was downtown, just off 9th Street. The passenger's name was Jared. I pulled up outside a high-rise apartment building. A tall guy in his early 30s came out, well-dressed, button-up shirt, slicked back hair. He looked put together, sober and calm. The type of guy you wouldn't think twice about. He got in the back seat and gave me a small nod. "Hey man, I need to make a quick stop on the way. Just a minute. My buddy's house, is that cool?" "Sure," I said. "Where's it at?" He gave me an address a few miles out, still in the city, but more in the suburbs. I plugged it into the GPS and we were off. The first few minutes were silent. Jared just stared out the window, occasionally checking his phone. Then he leaned forward slightly. "You ever have to deal with weird passengers?" he asked. I chuckled. "Plenty. You drive late enough, you see it all." One guy tried to open his beer in the back seat and swore he was in his living room. He laughed a little, but it sounded forced. "Yeah, people get dumb at night." We arrived at the house, a small one-story bungalow on a quiet residential street. The porch light was off. Jared turned to me and said, "Just a minute. Gonna grab something real quick." Then he got out and walked toward the house. I waited. 3 minutes passed, then 5. I was starting to wonder if he fell asleep in there when I saw him come back out, carrying a big black duffel bag. It looked heavy. He grunted slightly as he tossed it into the trunk and slammed it shut. Then he got back in, suddenly more fidgety than before. "All good?" I asked. "Yeah," he muttered. "Let's go." We pulled away and got back onto the main road. I noticed he was sweating now, even though the AC was on. He kept checking the rearview mirror and tapping his leg. Then I heard it. A dull thump. It came from the trunk. I thought maybe the bag had shifted or something fell over. 10 seconds later, another thump. Then something more distinct, a muffled sound, almost like a voice. I felt my stomach twist. Jared caught me glancing in the mirror. "You hear something?" he said too quickly. I played dumb. "Nah, just the road." He nodded, but his body was rigid now, like he was bracing for something. A few minutes passed. Then I heard it again, this time clear as day, a voice, a muffled female voice. It was faint, but I heard it.
"Help."
I don't know how to describe what that does to your brain when it really clicks, when you go from suspicion to certainty. There was someone in my trunk. I kept my face calm, didn't react, just kept driving, hands at 10 and 2. I glanced at my Apple Watch and slowly tapped the side button to bring up emergency text. I had set it up after seeing a Reddit post about how you could silently text 911 if you had an Apple Watch. I had never used it. Until now, I tapped out a message. Uber driver, woman may be in trunk, black Honda Accord, heading north on Franklin. I sent it. I don't know if Jared saw me, but a minute later he leaned forward and said, "Actually, pull over here. I'll walk the rest of the way." We were nowhere near his original drop-off. I pulled over without hesitation. He opened the door, grabbed his phone, and stepped out. The moment the door shut, I floored it. I drove straight to the nearest gas station, and flagged down the night clerk, who looked at me like I was insane as I yelled, "Call 911. Now! There's someone in my trunk." Cops showed up within minutes. I gave them the short version of what happened. 2 officers went to the back of the car and opened the trunk. What I saw still haunts me. Inside was a young woman, maybe early 20s. She had duct tape around her wrists and ankles, a strip of tape over her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she was alive. She was breathing. They pulled her out carefully, cut the tape, and sat her down. She couldn't speak at first, just sobbed uncontrollably. Turns out Jared wasn't her friend. He had posed as her Uber driver earlier in the night, picked her up outside a club when she was too drunk to double-check the app. Somehow, by some stroke of luck, she managed to scream when the car stopped, and I was there to hear it. Jared was arrested 2 hours later, not far from where I dropped him. He was carrying a burner phone and a hunting knife in his coat. The duffel bag? Just a cover to justify opening the trunk. He'd done this before. The detective told me they were looking into other incidents in the area. Missing women from ride shares that never got reported because nothing officially happened. Uber contacted me a few days later and offered support, therapy coverage, all that. I cooperated fully with the police, gave them access to the trip records, dash cam footage, everything. I stopped driving for Uber not long after that. I still have nightmares sometimes, not just about the girl in the trunk, but about how close I was to not hearing her. If the music had been up, if my windows were down, if I hadn't paused to listen. It's terrifying how close you can be to real evil without even knowing it.